Okay. Okay. So this is kind of an impromptu thing. I had gotten some queries about, or not I, but through the group, groups.io group, there was some queries about Stream Deck integration. And I know I helped a few of you out with a Zoom session and resolved some issues. And there seemed to be some additional interest in that. So between sometime in the last couple of days, I put together um, a document that shows how I did Stream Deck integration for my rotor. And that's what I'm going to demonstrate today and go through the sequence. I'm hoping this is going to be an interactive session. Uh, before I get into that, how many people have problems with Stream Deck integration? This least Mike and Dan and Mel. So there's at least three of you, and Dave,
And
uh,
probably the rest of us haven't tried. So,
and the rest of you might not have tried. So with an audience this size, I don't know that we can do one-on-one, but I encourage each of you to be interactive during the session and at least ask questions. Um, Let me step back again and ask a few more questions. So the PDF that I put together was for a fairly straightforward integration between a Stream Deck and an existing Node-RED flow. It does not, at least in my instance, it does not address tweaking of buttons. And by that, I mean changing button colors, changing what's displayed on the button. It is simply you push a button and something happens inside Node-RED. Now, I know Dave WO2X mentioned uh, integration with FrStack. So FrStack is a utility that works well with Flex radios and only Flex radios. Well, actually, he's rolled in some support for a few other devices, SPE amps and one other device, I think, but it's primarily used for integration with Flex. Um, Although I haven't rolled that into that PDF document, I do have some examples of that if we have time, we can get into, or we can have a follow-on session. And so how many people have interest in integrating with Flex? Okay. And do you currently already run FrStack? About half of you. Okay. Okay. Um, and lastly, how many have interest in tweaking buttons? In other words, changing colors, text, things like that. Okay. Now, to be perfectly honest, I haven't done that myself, but we have enough subject matter experts, and I think Alan is on the call. I think he is the expert in tweaking buttons, but I don't think we're going to get to that in this session. So with that, let me start and let me share first my, and I'm going to be switching shares because I got a big display and it kind of messes things up. Let me first share my Node-RED window. So can everybody see this? Can people see this?
yes.
Okay. Okay. So this is the flow we're going to look at. This is my Stream Deck flow, but I'm going to start at the other end of the spectrum, the other end of the process. This flow and my Stream Deck are used to control a rotor that simply has on the Stream Deck a matrix of 9 buttons, 3 by 3. Top row of buttons is north, west, north, and northeast. Middle row of buttons is west, stop, and east. Bottom row of buttons is southwest, south, and southeast. So essentially a compass rose of buttons with a stop button in the middle. So I'm going to show you the rotor flow that this integrates with, because ultimately, if you're going to integrate buttons with a flow, you need an integration point between the widget you're controlling, in my case, the rotor, and the Stream Deck. So it's good to understand what you want the Stream Deck flow to do before you actually start building a Stream Deck flow. So this is the rotor flow, and let's see, I can probably, so let's see. So I've got the actual, let me do this. Let me bring up a tab with the user interface. So I don't have to switch shares. Okay. So this is the HF rotor flow, or the widget, the dashboard widget for that flow. And there's also another widget associated with the rotor, and it's the map. So right now I'm pointing northeast, and if I go and push the east button, you'll see that the rotor flow and the map flow track. Now, so these flows are standalone, and essentially here are the buttons in the rotor flow, and they all produce a numeric that gets converted to string. And here there's text. So the actual integration between the Stream Deck flow and the rotor flow is this link right here, Stream Deck target in, and this link right here. So the Stream Deck flow produces, based on the button pushes, a bearing or the word stop. A little bit of a white lie in there, you'll see that in a minute. But ultimately, the Stream Deck flow integrates through these two linkages. And I found it easier not to mess up the rotor flow with the Stream Deck flow in one flow, but keep the Stream Deck flow separate. And simply using the link in for stop and for the bearing. So now, let me go and change the share and share the Stream Deck configuration. So there's the Stream Deck, share. So now you're seeing, if you will, the Stream Deck, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to click on North. Okay. When you configure the Stream Deck button, you configure it as a WS proxy. You see that here? And I think, and I encourage you to look at the PDF I sent out. And oh, by the way, if you find any mistakes in the PDF, let me know. I'll fix them. So don't be bashful. So when you create the button, you create it as a WS proxy. This is what's displayed on the button, in this case, North. This is the WebSocket that's used, and then this is the payload that gets handed off to Node-RED. Now, you remember earlier I said that what's passed between the Node-RED flow, or that the Stream Deck flow and the rotor flow, is a 3-digit bearing. And I mentioned there's a white lie. And the white lie is that I also pass the text rotor before the 3-digit bearing. I'm going to come back to that. If I had to do this again, I would do it a little bit different, but let me touch on that towards the tail end. We're going to use things as they are. So,
Ron, just quick question. Is this software that comes with the Stream Deck?
yes,
Okay.
this is the Stream Deck button configuration tool.
And download it from
Yep.
Elgato's website,
Yep.
which makes
Got
the
it.
Stream Deck.
Yes.
And the website, the WebSocket proxy, Ron, did you cover that? You have to install that into here?
No, no, I didn't cover that, and that's a good point. The WebSocket proxy is a separate download, and let me make a note.
Custom plugin. If you look at my zip file on the file section, I believe it's in there.
Okay.
Is this software for Windows only,
They make it for the Mac.
Yeah, yeah.
but not for the Pi?
No.
Okay.
No, but you really don't need to, well, you don't need to run it on the Pi, because through the WebSocket, you can touch any device on the LAN.
Not only that, but when you go traveling away from your station, you can take your Stream Deck with you with your laptop, plug it in the laptop, and it still works.
Yeah, so let me, it sounds like some people are not familiar with the Stream Deck. So here I've got some buttons to basically start various functions. These buttons will bring up Smart SDR, and they'll bring up the ancillary software. So for example, if I click FT8 start, I have a batch file that brings up Smart SDR, brings up WSJT, brings up, and I use Ham Radio Deluxe for logging. If I click SSB start, it simply brings up Smart SDR and logging, doesn't bring up WSJT. And then there's, so let's see. And using FR Stack integration, I can change bands quickly or modes quickly from this window. Skip that guy. And I can switch, again, bands here. Skip that one. I do some VHF contesting, so we will run the UHF VHF bands. So I've got a whole bunch of buttons for some predefined frequencies on the various UHF and VHF bands. This is the rotor that we're looking at. So I'm going to go back to here. The Stream Deck, I think, was originally built for the music industry and people doing things with music on PCs. But
It is built for pretty much music / video / podcasting, any kind of editing like that, where you have to switch video inputs or screens on a computer, images, music tracks, and everything. They have them laid out with buttons like OBS Studio, if you've ever heard of that. It's a free editing program, and that is integrated with the Stream Deck. And so I use it and you'll see it right there in Ron's screen down the bottom. It says OBS Studio. And if you select that, it selects a whole profile that will set up the Stream Deck to do video and audio editing.
I
And
have
for
a
those that
question.
don't know, Dave, that's WO2X Dave that was just talking. And he deserves a round of thanks for everything he's done with the Node-RED site and all the effort he put into it. So thank you, Dave.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I've got his K4D flow actually open behind me.
So
Yeah, that was really kind of like just to show that it can be done, and that I never really built it up complete. So I see you've done a lot of work on it.
okay, so now
I have one question, if you
Yep.
don't mind, real quick.
mhm,
I don't have a Stream Deck. I've thought about buying one, and then a couple of years ago they came out with a different version, and I was sort of waiting to find out if anybody was going to create flows for that. But these overlays that you're showing, so obviously that's interchangeable through Node-RED. I mean, you should have one right now for the rotator. You had the one for VHF FT8. So you can hotkey between those because your Stream Deck doesn't have all the buttons on it physically that you were showing, correct?
Ron, show the page left, page right buttons in your bottom
Yeah.
left and right corner.
yeah, so these so in my configuration, I've got 9 pages.
Gotcha.
You can link left and right. So go to this would be if I was on page 7 and I clicked that button on the Stream Deck, it would go to page 8.
Okay.
You can also have hierarchy in the menu. This goes up one level. So for example, if I go to page 1, it's hard to see on here, but this is a link to page 2, which is
Okay.
the HF page. That page right there. So you
Gotcha.
can but you can have buttons linked to other pages. You can go up in the hierarchy and you can go left and right.
Okay.
And that has nothing to do with Node-RED. That's
Yeah,
all
okay.
native to
Gotcha.
the Stream Deck.
Thank you.
And of course, this is a Stream Deck XL. Mine's the
Yes.
smaller Stream Deck with the 5x3
Right. I think
buttons.
there's 3 versions of it now. There's the XL, which is this one. There is a smaller one, and then there's one that's got 3 or 4 knobs on it.
Yeah, I have one here I can bring up and show later at the Stream Deck Plus.
So, yeah.
Can I just clarify on the WS proxy side of it? Let's assume for a moment I've got the Stream Deck plugged into a PC on my LAN. I know what the IP address of that PC is. The actual Node-RED is running on my Raspberry Pi.
Mhm.
So my question would be, is what do I actually physically enter into that first node in the Stream Deck flow on the Pi in the WS proxy node?
So you'll see that because I'm going to walk from
Okay.
this end all the way to the far end.
I mean, at the moment, I've
Yeah.
got the Stream Deck plugged direct into the Pi, and there's a different node, a hardware node I've found, which can read the Stream Deck directly when it's plugged into one of the ports on the Pi. But this is obviously different to that.
Yeah.
So
So my configuration is Node-RED is running on a Raspberry Pi. The Stream Deck is running and connected to a Windows PC.
great.
Okay. So the next step, once you've defined the button and what you want to pass to Node-RED, is the actual interface to Node-RED. So here, can you guys see the text?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So WS : is the WebSocket. In my case, I have Node-RED next. That is a DNS name because I have the Node-RED IP address in DNS. But if you did not, you could simply substitute the IP address of your Node-RED server in there, and then :1880. for the Node-RED port. And by the way, if you've reconfigured the Node-RED port to be something other than 1880, you obviously have to reflect that same change here. And then this, stop that. /Stream Deck. This identifies on the Node-RED side, it becomes part of the URL, and the Node-RED Stream Deck node ties into that. So you'll notice that when I show you the flow or share the flow out, you'll see this exact same text. So the interface from the Stream Deck to Node-RED is through a WebSocket proxy that has defined in it the IP address or the host name of the Node-RED server, the port, and the tail end of the URL /Stream Deck that's going to be used. Now, I haven't tried this, but I know Unix, which a Raspberry Pi is running, is case sensitive. I'm suspicious that the tail end of that URL may be case sensitive, but I haven't actually tried to break it and see if that's the case. I don't know, Dave, do you have any insight into that?
Yeah, it is case sensitive,
Yeah, virtually everything in Unix is case sensitive.
including the ID on the bottom.
Yes, including the ID on the bottom. Yeah. So you really have to be careful. Just do everything lowercase. Okay, so I'm going to jump from here to Node-RED. Is everybody comfortable with that now?
Yep.
Okay, so give me a second, share, and here. And let me go to the Node-RED flow, or the Stream Deck flow. Okay, so this node here is what is, if you will, the input side to Node-RED from the Stream Deck. So this is what's, if you will, accepting the WebSocket connection. And this node listens on, the choices are listens on or connect to. So we're listening on this port. This is the text that was at the tail end of the URL in the Stream Deck, and this must exactly match in case and text what was on the Stream Deck. And optionally, you can give it a name, which I didn't. So this is what is, if you will, accepting the connection from the Stream Deck on the path that you defined. By the way, debug nodes are very handy when it comes to doing anything with Node-RED that you're troubleshooting. So I highly encourage the use of debug nodes, but make sure that you turn them off once you either turn them off or get rid of them. If you leave them turned on, they tend to consume buffer space, which does get overwritten. But what you'll find is if you're debugging flow A and flow B is generating a ton of debug output, and you're only monitoring the current flow in debug, what you're going to find is your debug messages will appear, and then they will slowly disappear off the screen. They've disappeared off the screen because all of the other noise from the other flow has caused the debug buffer to fill up and roll over and trash the messages you care about.
Hey, Ron, could I make a comment here of a common error that we might run into.
Go ahead.
So everybody notice on Ron's Stream Deck, the WebSocket flow, it says connected. And that's if you find that your connection's not working, I want to show you something that could be the cause of that. Ron, over in your debug panel, could you bring up your configuration nodes?
Configuration nodes.
Yeah, right there, configuration nodes. Now notice if you scroll down, you'll find that it actually created, the WebSocket created a node. You have to scroll down and find it, Ron.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking for it. There.
Okay, there it is at the bottom, okay? So there is the configuration node for the URL that ends in /streamdeck, okay? And it shows that there's one node. Now the scenario that you could run into, let's say you imported another example of this flow for whatever reason. What it's going to do, it's going to create another configuration node that's identical to this one right now that ends in /streamdeck. And if you find that your WebSocket is not connecting, look at the list of configuration nodes. If there's two WebSockets with the same suffix, neither one of them will connect. So what you have to do is delete one of the two so that they're not duplicated. And then you'll notice that it should connect okay after that. Just a troubleshooting tip.
Okay. And for those that don't know Alan, he is one of our other subject matter experts in the Node-RED community. He's contributed, like Dave, a significant number of flows into the groups.io library. Okay, so this is how we link the Stream Deck on the PC to, or sorry, how we link the Stream Deck on the PC to Node-RED on the Raspberry Pi. And as somebody pointed out earlier, if you actually have the Stream Deck connected to the Raspberry Pi, you would use a different node, not the WebSocket Stream Deck node. And I believe I referenced in the PDF what you import into the palette manager for the WebSocket. Installed. So this is the Stream Deck WebSocket that you need to add to your palette in order to get this WebSocket node. Let's see. Let me just get.
If you follow the wiki and building the Raspberry Pi, that is included in there in the list of nodes to add.
Oh, where is chat? There's chat.
Ron, if you follow the wiki on building the Pi, it's in the list of nodes to add.
Yeah. So, okay. So now the payload coming out of the Stream Deck comes in here and flows to this guy. Okay. And from there, the Stream Deck produces both key down and key up events, and likely changed. Huh, my microphone changed. What happened? Can you guys still hear me okay or not?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Weird. Anyway, the Stream Deck produces key down and key up events and probably others. And when I touch a button, I want it to, I want Node Red to act when I press the button, when I push on the button, not when I lift up on the button. So I care about key downs. So this is a switch node that simply looks at message.payload.event, which comes from, if you will, from the Stream Deck, and selects and switches.
But he is just really cute and they're fun and all that stuff. But y'all Joy wanted the paper plates, so I'll just give those to Bree.
Uh-oh.
Keep it in here or what?
Yeah, just leave it in the car for me.
Ken, can you mute? Is that you?
That wasn't me.
Tyler.
No.
It was who? Oh,
Tyler.
Tyler? Okay.
I'll try to get this thing muted somehow. I'm sorry.
So there's no configuration of the Stream Deck node?
Well, the Stream Deck node was configured, and I just displayed that earlier, with the IP address or DNS host name of the,
I think he's talking about the Stream Deck in
No, I'm
and
talking
out.
about Stream Deck in the blue
Yeah,
node.
the in and
Oh,
out, there's
no.
no configuration.
There's no
Just the
configuration.
pair that you had.
What does that button do, or that node do?
It takes the WebSocket information and then
Yeah.
converts it, and then the output. Yeah, Ron, you explain.
Yeah. It takes in effect
And let me,
what gets
let me try. When you push a button on the Stream Deck, it sends a
Muffled. You're
message.
muffled.
you're muffled.
Yes, they want to. Any better?
Yeah, it's better.
Yeah.
Okay, when you push a button, if you looked at the message, the full
Yeah.
message, it sends a series of codes
Yeah.
so that it knows which device it came from, whether you have an XL or another device. It sends a code for the actual button index. So what you have to do is that node stores that information into.
Yeah, you're
context.
muffled again, Alan. We can't hear you.
Mhm. It stores it into index. I'll just try to finish and then let me work on the mic.
Yeah,
It
let me
stores it into-
let me explain what I think Alan's trying to do. Basically, you
Okay, I
get
give up.
you get the Stream Deck communicates with the WebSocket.
Right.
For Node Red to process, for Node Red to be able to act on anything, there needs to be payload data, which is what Node Red is based on. So what I
Right.
just did is I temporarily enabled the debug node on the Stream Deck in, and this information got passed from the Stream Deck node out. Let's see, action, let me reload object, settings, ID rotor. Yes. Okay, so this basically takes, if you will, the information that came across via IP and turns it into payload structured data that other nodes can then process.
Can you do the debug right above it there, the Stream Deck out?
Yeah.
Let's see what the difference
Oh.
is.
So let me clear. Okay, and I'm going to hit the east button. And
Converting
stop.
it from a stream to the JSON
yeah,
to be
and-
used.
Okay.
And essentially what you'll notice is there is simply comma separated textual data that's coming across. It was a key down here. You can see
Mhm.
here's the key down event. Here's the key up event. And this is not in a form that Node-RED can process.
Okay. So that's basically a formatting node that
It
the Stream
creates the
Deck is in.
JSON.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay.
Hmm.
Could I try again? How's my mic now? This is Alan.
Yeah, you're doing a little bit better now.
Okay.
Yeah, much better.
If I may expand upon Ron's explanation. When you get into wanting to command the button to do something, and you got to know where to send that command back to. So if you look at this text, inside that text, there's the device ID and there are the coordinates of the button. And so what this does is it allows you then to format your response to go back to that device and that button. So that's more advanced, but that's embedded in that message and required for that more advanced usage.
Yeah. So what's buried in here, again, the button position, you can see I pressed the east button, so rotor 090. You've got the path to the WebSocket on Node-RED and other stuff in here that comes across.
In this application, you're not going to send anything back. So all you really care about
Right.
is the payload.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, this particular flow does not modify the buttons at all.
Right. But
So
you could, theoretically, you could change the color of the button that was
Right.
pressed, etc.
right. So if I go back to the switch node, basically output 1 is a key down, output 2 is a key up, and you'll notice output 1 continues the flow, output 2 is a dead end street. So I don't care about key up events, I only care about key down events.
Right.
If I could add just one important detail, and you've not included it in your flow here, Ron. Remember that the button had an ID. I think the button that you were demonstrating was rotor
Right.
001.
Yep.
If you look, go ahead and activate that debug node on the output of the Stream Deck.
Yeah.
No, not that one.
Oh.
The other, yes, that one. Okay, clear. Now, if you hit that, hit the button, you'll see in the JSON, there should be the ID expanded in the payload.
I'm getting there. Yeah, right
Yeah,
there.
see, there's the ID. Now, let's do this just for to show you. Put a switch node upstream of the key down node there. Put a switch node between the Stream Deck and the key down. Okay. Now open up the switch node. And what we want to do is grab that ID, the path to the ID. So now up here in property where it says message payload, what we want to do is get the path to the ID. So come down and get the path. If you hover over the ID, right, now go over right there where it says path. Copy, no, not the value, the path.
Yep, you're right.
Copy the path.
there.
Now, copy that path into the property. Okay, see, so it's always gonna look at that path. So now copy the ID, the value, rotor 0005, copy that now the value, the value. Now paste that in. So now this will only pass the message payload object when the message ID is equal to rotor 045. What the concept is, you can direct that to now one of your Node-RED flows. It's just like punching a inject node. It'd be like a trigger to trigger something in a Node-RED flow. So what I like to do is if you hit cancel now we've got that in there. Let's go in, hit cancel, Ron, or done. Now, put in a change node. Just to illustrate the concept.
I did a cancel. I'll tell you what,
Well,
Al, let me go through the whole flow and then we can come back and do this because I'm going to touch on
Okay.
some of the things you're talking about, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, I want to make sure we get through the flow because I don't know how much time people have. So deploy that. Okay. Okay, so at this point, we're going to act on the key down event and we're going to act on message.payload.event, which came out of the Stream Deck node. Now, I happen to go into a function node. And you don't necessarily need to go into a function node depending on what your flow does. But what I want to point out, and I'm going to close this for a minute because I want to turn this debug node on and press a button. Let's see, we'll go, I was east, so let's go northeast. So there's the debug. And I only got, if you will, the key down action. So if I expand it. Okay. Let me expand it. So this is message.payload. What I just expanded, this whole thing here is message.payload. Now, we already saw message.payload.event because on the switch node, we acted on that. Now, within message.payload, the Stream Deck through the WebSocket proxy and this guy right here provides a payload. And it's important to recognize that because the path, path, if I just, I'm gonna, the path is message.payload.payload.settings.id. So this is message.payload from Node-RED, and then from the Stream Deck, it's payload.settings.id. If you don't duplicate the payload, you're not going to get the ID. Does everybody have that?
Yeah, but what do you need the ID for in this flow?
Well, so the ID in my case, remember, is rotor 045 in this case.
Right.
So it's the action. So in my case, I go into a function node and I peel out from the ID, which is rotor XXX. It could also be stop. I peel out from message.payload.payload.settings.id. I peel out starting at character 5 for 4 characters. So character 5 is the beginning of the 3-digit bearing.
And remember, it starts at character 0.
Yeah, and the 3-digit, the beginning of the 3-digit bearing, or the S in the word stop. So I'm peeling out a substring, and I'm passing that on as message.payload to the next node. And that's all this does. Okay. And here, I take that message.payload. If it's a stop, I go out port 1, if you will, of the switch node. And otherwise, I go to port 2. I assume it is the bearing. And then, so port 1 is the link in, or the link out here to the link in the rotor flow. In the case of a bearing, I convert it to a number, because if you remember, the rotor flow expects a number coming in that it converts to a string. So I've got to convert it to a number first, even though that's somewhat redundant. That's what I ended up doing. So I convert it to a string, and then I pass it to the HF rotor azimuth in. So this whole thing is self-contained, and the linkages to the rotor flow are through these two link out, link ins.
Ron, can you show the convert to number? What's in there, please?
It's simply converts a string to a number.
Oh, okay.
It's a, yeah.
It's a predefined function.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can stop that. You can convert to number string.
I believe on several of the rotor flows that are in there, including like the Pi, the RT21 to Pi, everything that goes in as a string and then gets converted in the rotor flow.
Yeah. So now I'm going to step back for a minute and describe a problem. And it's a problem that I have based on the way I originally designed this. And it's fixable. So here I have let's just focus on this one, the bearing going to HF rotor. Well, guess what? Here's HF rotor. Here's UHF VHF rotor. I might want to talk to this rotor. But from from the Stream Deck, let's go here. From the Stream Deck, how do I tell which rotor I want to talk to? The ID, the message coming from the Stream Deck, is simply rotor 045.
Hey, Ron.
I suggest
exactly how to do that. It's real simple.
Well, yeah. Okay, go ahead. Because that was what I was going to lead into. What I've got is, and it goes beyond rotors. If you want to control multiple devices, multiple things through Node-RED, you've got to develop some kind of a hierarchy in your identification string so that you know which device, so that you can direct a set of buttons at a specific flow and send them to the right downstream flow. So go ahead, Alan.
That's correct, Ron. That's exactly correct. Now, how do you do that? The hierarchy starts with the WebSocket path URL. And then below that are the button IDs. So copy that WebSocket node, just copy that and bring it down and paste it into the canvas. But don't deploy yet because we'll screw up now. Open up that config and give the prefix a unique name. And that will create a new configuration node. So now give that, make a new one. Really all you needed to do is cancel back out of that for a minute. Go back and open this one up. Okay. See how this one is /Stream Deck? Make a new one and give it a unique name.
Yeah, that's what I was going to do.
Other than
Add a
/Stream
new
Deck.
name, and I was going to give it the name Alan.
Yeah, okay. Give it a new name. It's got to have a slash in front of it because
Oh,
it's
yep,
a
yep.
path.
Thank you. Yeah, I would put it in there for me. It's mistake proofed it. Okay.
Well done. Now, this creates a new WebSocket. So now back in your Stream Deck,
yep,
you can make for whatever your second rotor is, the path to those buttons will be /Allen rather than /Stream Deck. So that's the top of the hierarchy.
I got an easier way.
Well, let me finish. And then as you whatever method you feel comfortable with, then use your button IDs to get the button to go to the corresponding Node-RED button that you want. Okay, go ahead, Dave.
I have an easier way. I have one single WebSocket Stream Deck connection in and out from the Stream Deck to Node-RED. And all I do is my button IDs, I just have them all unique. So if you have multiple rotors, you'll have it as HF090, or you can have it say VHF090.
Yeah, that's correct.
Now you have different buttons.
That works too. You give each button a unique ID. But
because that minimizes the amount of traffic coming in and out of the Raspberry Pi. You don't have multiple WebSockets open.
It's just another way of doing it. But
yeah, but you don't have multiple WebSockets.
Was the hierarchy you can adjust, to your preference to direct the buttons pushes to the points in Node-RED flow that you want.
Yeah, and in fact, what we're talking about now is, as with any form of programming, there's many different ways to do things, and they each have their pros and cons. Dave passes, HF rotor, and a bearing. Alan has different WebSockets. Dave, I presume you do a substring and peel out which rotor early on, and then send the data that way.
Yeah. What I do is I have a switch node that then can take the information, and depending if it says HF, if it says VHF, if it says DLI, whatever it is, sends it to the appropriate flow. So it just splits that information out from the, comes in, goes through the WebSocket stream, WebSocket input, goes through the Stream Deck in, and then into a switch node. And then out of the switch node, I split it and send it to all the different flows.
Yeah. And
So
the
real
approach
simple.
and the approach I was going to take is a variation of a theme on that. I tend to like delimiters for hierarchy, so I was thinking I would rename, or I would change the ID, for example, for north from rotor 000 to HF rotor : 000. That way there's a discrete character I can use to split the device from the action.
You don't even need the character, Ron. You use split it on HF. When it sees HF, boom, it goes to the HF flow.
Okay, so the programming side, it comes into play when I might have another thing that's unrelated to rotors that I might be using the Stream Deck for that happens to start with the letters HF.
Yeah, I mean, I could
Yeah.
bring up and show you my
Yeah.
Stream Deck.
It's just different programming styles, and all of them will work.
Mhm.
So
If I could,
yep. So I'm going to step back and let you guys ask questions.
Thanks, Ron, and everyone. Could I ask you just to take a step back? I think I got it, but I need you to go back and go and understand how to strip out the idea of a switch from the payload. Just take a step back, because I think that for me is the key. And once you're access to that data in an individual payload, I think you're on to that.
So here's the payload.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I happen to be using a function node substring. SUBSTR is a substring function that is acting on message.payload.settings.payload.settings.id.
Hey, Ron?
Yep.
Yeah, on the bottom right where you have the debug node and it says ID with rotor, whatever, go to the right and show the path. If you show the path, you can actually bring up a function node and then copy the path and paste it in a function node.
Yeah.
Just to show the path.
Whoops. Got the ID.
That was the payload.
Yeah, I know.
It's the first one.
The
Left one.
ID copy path. There it is.
So that's how you get that. That's how you get that path. That's what you're looking for coming in. And then what Ron's doing is that it says rotor 045, and so it starts at character 0. So ROTOR. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so the fifth character is where he's starting, and he's parsing out and taking a maximum of 4 characters of length. So you're starting at the fifth character, which would be the actual heading.
Okay, so for me, if I was to, I don't know, something like power on or power off, I'd just be looking for a text string that said power on or power off.
Yeah, if you're looking for the on and off, you would just, POWER again, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you would be parsing at the fifth character, and on or off, you would be looking at a maximum length of 3.
Okay, thank you.
Don,
Yeah, and
I'm cautious to not hijack your presentation, so I want to make sure you're finished. But that was an excellent question. Goes back to the principles. If I could be allowed, with your assistance, to build a very simple conceptual demonstration flow that kind of illustrate the basic concepts.
Okay.
Go back to your flow. What we're going to do is bring down the WebSocket, disconnect the WebSocket flow from your stuff. Just break those wires. Keep the debug node, but let's separate it from the rest of your flow.
Oh, okay. So I think what you're saying is that.
Yeah, just delete all that stuff. Well, don't delete the WebSocket flow. We need that.
I don't think.
Delete everything except the WebSocket flow,
Okay.
the WebSocket node.
So I'm going to leave these connected. So
just move everything over out of the way. except for the WebSocket node.
except for this node.
Correct, that's right. Just move everything to the right. Select it all and then
Okay,
move
hold
it
on.
to the
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Well, I'm going to move it into a blank flow.
Okay,
Okay. So I'm unselecting this, and you want me to unselect these also?
just all I want is the WebSocket Stream Deck node.
Just copy that node.
Wait a minute. You only want the Stream Deck node?
That's correct. The WebSocket, that one, just
This
keep
one
that.
here.
That's what we're gonna start with, and
Oh, okay.
either
So I can,
remove or delete everything else.
well, so,
Yeah, let's start with that.
okay.
Now, we know that's a string format coming out of there. It's actually a string JSON. So
Yeah,
what we
hold on,
need
hey,
to do is
hey,
put it in
Ron,
JSON.
hold on. Ron, disable your Stream Deck flow first.
Yeah, because we got two instances now.
Right, you can only have one instance of that.
Disable that for now, so you have it, you can re-enable it when we're done. Right now go.
Okay, now put a JSON node on the output of that. And that will convert that string JSON to a JSON formatted
Yeah.
object.
Oh, here.
Yeah, put that there. And put a debug node on the output of that.
Did everybody realize what I did? So I don't know where the JSON is in this monster list of nodes. So I went up to filter and I typed JSON and it filtered the list of nodes.
Now put a debug node on the output of that. But we want to see the full object. So go into the debug node and enable it so we see the full object.
So,
For the payload.
yeah,
That's a job. You gotta
so
go in the,
there's,
Yeah, complete.
when you
That's,
do debug nodes, quite often you just get the payload. By default, you just get the payload. But if you want to see the complete object, you can select this.
okay. Now go ahead and deploy.
Yeah. Okay, and
So
debug
now,
is on,
let's say we see we're connected, okay?
and
Now, for simple flow, clear your debug, just clear it,
clear
clear
it.
the debug page. Now push one of your buttons.
I just did that. That's where this came from.
Okay, now what we're looking for now is the ID. Okay, copy the path.
So this is the button down, key down. This is key up because we didn't do any filtering.
Right, well, I'm just looking for that.
Yeah.
ID of the button, not the
down
ID
the bottom
of the
under
device.
session. It's down the bottom
That's
under
the
session.
ID. I want the button ID. Keep expanding.
So it's this guy.
Was that the button ID?
Well, it's called ID. They
No,
don't-
No,
it's the one that you named it. You know, it was rotor or something.
It's not in here. So
Expand payload, right
hey,
there.
hold on, right there.
Yeah, settings.
There it is. There it is.
There it is.
Okay.
Now,
Yeah.
copy the path to that ID. Okay, now come back to the debug and just put that in as the path. So now all we see are the IDs. Open that
Yeah.
up.
What?
Okay, now up there in output, just paste that path into there.
Go to message and then put it in there.
Message.
Okay.
Oh, you want mess? Okay. Okay. Yep.
Now go ahead and deploy.
Where am
I'm
I?
just demonstrating the concept. Now open up the debug.
Deploy. You gotta
Now,
you
deploy.
just
didn't
hit-
deploy.
hit-
You didn't deploy,
What I
Ron.
want you to do is hit two of your buttons.
So hold on. I don't want to drive the rotor crazy. So hold on. There's one,
Okay.
and there's
So here you've got rotor 098 and rotor 135, okay?
Yep.
All right, so now bring over a switch node. tie that into the output of the JSON. Okay, open up the switch. Now we need that same path to the rotor ID. Okay, now add an output. No, it's the property. We want message, payload settings. ID
Okay. Okay.
in the property.
Yeah. Okay.
It's now, let's make an output for ID rotor 090. Now add another one for rotor 135.
Mm,
Okay. Say done.
yeah, so, so let me, yep, okay.
Okay, now bring over 2 change nodes and tie them into one of those outputs, one into each output. And put a debug node on the output of the change nodes. Just the message payload output. Okay, now open up the top one, the top change node.
Top change node.
Yeah. So now set message payload to string, just say trigger. It's going to send the text trigger.
Wait a minute.
Just type in trigger.
Oh,
Message payload trigger. When that gets triggered, it's going to send out the string
Oh, that-
called trigger. No,
Trigger.
not
No.
message, not in the message payload, in the string. There, just type in trigger. There you go. Okay, done. Now do that to the other one.
whoops.
Trigger, okay. Now let's just
Okay.
label our debug node so we know which one. I think the top one was
Yeah.
when
So
we
this
push
is-
the 90-degree button.
Yeah, so this is
Just give
90.
it the name 90 degrees or whatever, okay?
Yeah.
And then the other one was the 135 button. Okay, good. So now deploy.
Whoops.
Deploy the flow.
Yep, hold on. 90, so 90's on top, 135's on the bottom. Okay.
Now visualize you link up, the output of that trigger to the respective button, right? The top one goes to your 90-degree button,
Mm-hmm.
and the bottom one goes to your 135-degree button. Visualize that. Okay, so now hit your 135-degree button. So you'll notice that the debug, it came out on the 135-degree debug. Now, if you hit the other button, it comes out on the other button. See? So now we can direct, the button to the flow action that you want it to trigger.
Yeah, Alan,
Yes.
a couple of things. First of all, what you're doing right now, you're sending it twice because you're getting it on the key down and the key up.
That's right. Now you could put in another
Switch to do a
switch
key
to
down.
only get the action that you want. So let's do that. Now move your debug, those final 2 debugs.
Can I interrupt a second, Alan?
You go ahead and tell them where you want to put the key up switch.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Where are you going with this? Because I'd rather see the Stream Deck in and out used simply because if you ever want to send graphics to the button on the Stream Deck.
I'm trying to illustrate to the beginners here the basic concepts. This is how you could start off building your own very simple flow to trigger something in one of your other flows.
Right.
It's just it's a conceptual way of looking at it.
Yeah, it would be very useful, just having picked up most of this as it's gone, but I want it to stay in my head to somewhere just be able to pick up some of these example flows. So when I got the PDF document today, yesterday, I did have a read through it. It would be quite useful just to load these up somewhere so we can have a play with them.
I have on the file section, I should have a zip file with the plugin. There's a couple of plugins that you'll need, the plugin, the JSON, and some sample flows for the Stream Deck proxy. So
Right,
in
I'll
the
go.
file section.
I'll have a look for that. This particular one is quite useful. I realize that the Stream Deck in node can do some of what is being demonstrated here, but this is useful.
The reason I recommend those as you build your flow, is when you push the button, if Node-RED wants to send something back to the button to change the graphics on the button, it can do that, in more advanced stuff. And,
Yeah,
I have a button on my Stream Deck 32 that shows me my beam heading of my beam right now. And, that's an SVG graphic that comes back.
I've downloaded a flow here.
Okay.
From that actually shows sending pictures to the Stream Deck as well. I don't know whose it is. It doesn't have any text at the top of it to tell me who, but it's off the website anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's off the IA groups.
It's a
Go ahead, Alan. Continue on.
Try to do what you're asking. That's much more advanced.
Right.
I understand something that you can learn. This will get your foot in the door to start learning the basics.
Right, I understand, but the basics should include the Stream Deck in button.
What was that, Dave?
I said the basics should include the Stream Deck in and Stream Deck out button for future use. Because if you build this flow using a JSON, and then in the future you want to do something to send graphics back to the button, you got to pretty much rip apart your flow and rebuild it again.
So Dave, what you're saying is if you don't have that Stream Deck node, the blue button, then or the blue node, then you won't be able to send things back to your Stream Deck.
Because what happens is when you push a button and it comes into the Stream Deck in button, Ron, look at your context data and look at your context, your global context data.
There's nothing there.
Yeah, you go to the right and hit the refresh. There should have been something. Oh, because you deployed.
Yeah.
So you haven't used, since you deployed, you have not used the Stream Deck in button, Ron. You deployed without it. But if you were to disable flow one and
So
enable the other one,
that's
push
what
it.
I'm gonna go do. So
Just disable it.
enable stream deck. There it is. And enable. Done. Okay.
Deploy.
And
Deploy.
Yeah.
Push a button.
Yeah. So
And look at the global.
Okay. So I just pushed east. The rotor's turning.
And you should have less, trying to figure out where.
So how would somebody have gotten into global? Because
because when I go into stream, because what happens is I get Stream Deck context.
Well, do you?
Oh, you have yours right there says message has no Stream Deck ID. So look at your Stream Deck out. And this is where it becomes the graphics, the Stream Deck out, the bottom Stream Deck blue node. And under ID, put rotor 090. and it doesn't need a title or anything for now. Now push the button.
Deploy.
I haven't
Deploy
deployed.
first. Deploy first. And now this is again a little more advanced.
Oh,
Okay, yeah. So your parse command, your function node. I'll show you how I do mine. It's very advanced, but the bottom line is when you build it, you're sending an ID to that output, that Stream Deck out button that would then go to the WebSocket out. And when you push the button in, it's going to sit there and set the context. When it sends it back out to the button, it's going to take that 090 and set it into the button context, or whatever the button may be. The button may be coffee maker on, but it will set that in global context. And so every button on your Stream Deck will have value in global context. And so it will know when you have an output or when an input comes in, it knows where to go back to get back to the Stream Deck, to the button. That's how those two nodes are how it knows to go from A to A and B to B and C to C and so on.
So you need an individual node there, Stream Deck node, for every button you're going to send stuff back to it.
Yes, and when we're done, I could show you.
You got to do that button
my
ID.
Stream Deck flow with the Power Genius, the Tuner Genius, the Antenna Genius, and the DLI web switch.
And you need a WebSocket out on the end of those, right?
Yes, yes. So again, it's just that if you're going to start building where you push a button and it does something in Node-RED, add that Stream Deck in button, because in the future, if you want the label and everything on the button to change, to say on or off, or change the color between green when it's on and red when you're transmitting and gray when it's in standby, that's all done using the SVG graphics out. And we have plenty of, we have examples of that, how to do it.
Is Alan still there?
Alan, you still
But
there?
he's gone.
No? Okay.
Okay.
I'm kidding when I said that.
Which part?
No, I'm just simply saying if we're going to show the basics, just include that, because this way you don't have to modify your flow in the future to add it.
Yeah. So
What
when I
would be
put
some
this
good
together-
examples to download, Dave?
Yeah, let me find it on the website and I'll put a link up.
was it on rotors?
It should be in the file section.
So this is rotors.
Google. Yeah, it's in the file sections, flows by type, and it's probably under miscellaneous.
Miscellaneous or rotors? So
Stream Deck flows. No, it's not.
So I got PST rotor WO2X. That
Yeah,
was
it's not under rotors.
okay. Stream Deck flows. Nothing.
Yeah, it says looking
Flows by
for.
type. Let me go to miscellaneous. CSS. Flows rotor. No. We just look for ones.
I just put the file name in
Stream
the
Deck
chat.
to
if you want
Node-RED
to search for it.
integration files. It's under miscellaneous page 2.
Miscellaneous page 2.
I uploaded that 3 years ago.
And what was it? Oh, no.
Stream Deck to Node-RED integration files.zip.
Next one. There you go.
There. Okay. Lost zip. Okay.
I'm sorry if Alan got mad at me, but
Copy link address.
You know, I get what Alan was doing there with what he was demonstrating, but what would be the actual, why would you not use, or why would you use a JSON node instead of a Stream Deck node?
yeah, and then out of the Stream Deck node,
Even if you're not going to do button in,
Right.
stuff coming back to it. Say, I'm not even going to do that. Why would you not use the Stream Deck node? It just seems to take a lot of work out
and
of
then
it. what you're
also
doing.
take a look at a couple other ones to look at. Stream Deck Proxy by LA9VKA that's Tormod, and the Stream Deck Proxy version 2. Take a look at his flows too. There's some interesting information in there as well.
Yeah, get ready to get your mind blown looking at those things too.
Yeah,
Tormod which is why we're here on the Zoom call.
Yeah. So I put links to all three of those in the chat.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, Tormod is he turned us on to the SVG graphics and sending graphics. I have a button on my Stream Deck that shows me my my current receive filter on the radio, and it shows 100 to 2800. 100 to 2800 right now is my receiver bandwidth.
David, if I could ask you a couple of questions. You mentioned about using the Stream Deck in, and I understand why. But you kind of sort of, for me anyway, messed up the workflow on how to very simply move data through the nodes. I'm still confused about how I get the button. I can press on my Stream Deck. I can see the package. I'm still not sure how to move the information, whatever that might be within the package, into other functions within Node-RED.
Yeah. So what Ron showed when it came in through the Stream Deck in node, and then through the key down, and the key down basically is saying when you're pushing the button past the command out of input 1, and when you're not pushing it, it goes out of output 2. So we're only interested when you push the button, so you don't get that double bounce. And so what Ron's doing then is he's taking that payload coming in, which is rotor 090. That's the ID coming in from the button. And that's what you're doing. The ID in the button is what you're using to trigger something in Node-RED, whatever that is. And in this case, Ron is stripping out the 090, converting it to a number as 090, and sending that out to his rotor as an azimuth.
So here's where the ID, the payload, is coming from on the Stream Deck. In this case, it's north, so it's 080. There's 090. So this button is configured such that the title is E. Here's the WebSocket, which is WebSocket. And in this case, Node-RED is a DNS host name, but it could be an IP address. In my case, the name of my Raspberry Pi Node-RED server is called Node-RED. I could have easily used its IP address, and then that's immediately. Yep.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Yes, I'm sorry to cut across you. I apologize. Go back to the Node-RED flows. You could.
Yep.
Okay, so
There. Okay.
Yep. So that appears in that socket appears at Stream Deck.
So it comes out of here.
Does some magic, and then we
If you
decide.
want to turn on the debug, and you could show them where it comes out.
Yeah.
I actually have got this bit. This for me is actually quite up and straightforward. You can do the select, the key up and key down. For me, it's getting the information out of the package. Is where I don't understand how to configure Node-RED. Key up and key down is straightforward. How do I get the information? For instance, the button. How do I get at the button ID?
The button ID comes out of this node. So let me do this. Let me clear the debug.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to debug is on for this node here. I'm going to press, where's my rotor right now? Oh, it's east. So let me go northeast. So let me turn
You're right.
debug off.
The antenna's getting dizzy.
And if I expand, okay, if I expand message.payload, which is this object, the object has in it payload.settings.id. And there it is. And as was said earlier, if I copy the path, copy the path for this guy and just put a function node in, just so I got someplace to and paste it. There is message.payload.payload.settings.id.
So I can now use that, whether that's true or false, to drive the next logical workflow
Correct.
that I
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
open up,
so I
open
go
up your
down.
function node now, Ron, and show them what
Yeah.
you're doing with it.
Yeah, so I go through and filter on key downs, and then I go and parse, and I take I take that exact same string, that exact same path, and I take I do a substring on it to peel out everything after, well, 4 characters, up to 4 characters after the end of rotor.
Yeah, that .substr you see, and then the stuff at the end. What that does is it tells it take message.payload.payload.settings.id, and it's telling it I want a substring of that. I don't want the whole thing. I want part of it, and it tells it the start character and how many characters. And it starts at 0. So rotor would be ROTOR 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the 0 would be at the 5th character. So you're starting at 5, and he wants a maximum of 4 characters.
Gotcha.
So the
Don't forget the
output
word
of
stop.
that node is just
Is
those
called
last
message payload. The
yeah,
name
it's
of it is
just those
message
last
payload
4
coming out.
characters, but it's the last 4 characters of
Yeah.
the button ID.
Yeah, so here,
Yes.
so I turn debug on. It is
Yeah.
going to be the 3-digit in my scenario. It's either it's the 3-digit, it's the 3-digit bearing, or it's the word stop. So I've got debug turned on, coming out of here. There's east. So 090 is a string. Give me a second to let it stop. Okay, I'm pressing the stop button. So there's STOP. So I've stripped out the first 5 characters, ROTOR, and I'm taking the next 4 characters. So here's southeast, 135. And then once I convert it to a number, then I inject it into my rotor flow, which
That's what they call a link out node.
Yeah.
That's used to send data from one flow to another flow.
Yep. So the link out here passes to the rotor flow, either the numeric bearing or the word stop. But actually, no, it passes the numeric bearing here, and if it was the stop button, that goes to this link out here.
But why do you have to convert it to a number? It already is a number coming out of the switch node.
No, it's not. It's actually coming out as rotor 090, which is all it's text. It's a string.
But he parsed that out, right?
Yeah, it's parsed as a string. We're taking the full string and then parsing a substring of it.
Yes. So I agree. I don't need, well, so let's talk about order of events. I build a rotor flow. Here it is. It has its origins in PST rotor. Okay. Time passes. I add a Stream Deck. The rotor flow expects, or the buttons pass numeric values.
They're actually string.
Well, payload is 0
Oh,
through 9
9 numeric. Okay.
It's numeric. So I've got this existing flow that expects numeric bearings. So I either go back and re-architect this flow, or I simply take the string and turn it to a number and pass it in here. And I don't need to tweak this flow at all, other than adding the link in. I had to add the link in, and I had to add for bearing and stop.
So back on your Stream Deck page, that was the parse out was the string, and then
Yes.
then it's not even though it looks like numbers, it's not really numbers.
Yeah.
Until you say, okay, convert it. Now you're a number,
If
Right.
you look at the
even though you were
debug,
really a number before.
go back and look at the debug. It's in red. Red is a string. If there were numbers, it would be blue.
Hmm. Got it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I could put a, so here. Where's,
Yeah, that's a nice way of doing it, so you don't have to hack up the original flow.
right. It's,
And-
if we're doing both from scratch, it's stupid to do it that way.
Right. And
On the other hand,
if you look at my RT21 to Pi flow, I think I come out of everything out of the buttons. I come that are in Node Red. I come out as string and not numbers. So I don't have to convert the string. They're already a string. So it just saves a step.
so
Yes.
here,
Same
So-
thing.
this was before the conversion to string. This is after the conversion to string.
If you notice, it says message payload is number and message payload is string above it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and of course, no quotes denoting a number rather than a string as well.
So yeah, it's simply, I already had a perfectly good rotor flow that I had been using long before I got the Stream Deck. And so when I integrated the
sense.
Stream Deck in, I, rather than re-architect the rotor flow, I simply developed the Stream Deck flow to put out what the rotor flow expected.
Right. You next year you could be some other device and you could do
Right,
the same thing.
right,
Yeah,
right,
that's great.
Yeah.
I have a dumb question, if I may, because
No
I've got
dumb questions.
I've got a number of tabs open behind me, and the old Elecraft K4D tab is running at the moment, and it's chucking out loads of error messages for one reason or another, which I will get to the bottom of. However, how do I actually just simply stop that flow on that one tab so it's no longer chucking messages out to debug?
Well,
So I
look at your debug. Does it say current flow or does it say all flows?
it says all. Okay.
Change it to current.
You can select
Clear or hang on. Yeah.
Select current flow. Ron's showing you on here how to do it.
Okay.
And
Selected
if you
nodes.
select current flow, now when you see error messages, you know the error messages are on that.
Are only
particular
relevant
flow.
to the one you're actually looking at.
Hey,
Yeah, that's exactly
yeah,
what I
they
was
are, but there's the caveat that I mentioned earlier. I don't know if you heard it.
Yeah.
about
There
two.
is there's a fixed size buffer for debug, and they all go in there, and all you're doing is filtering on the current flow. So the debug messages are purged in a round robin fashion.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at the current flow, when you slowly see your debug messages disappear, it's because your other flow is consuming all of the buffer space
Yeah.
and overwriting the ones you care about.
However, you can just do a clear and empty the buffer, can't you? A clear all at the top.
Right, but if the other flow that you're not debugging is producing debug messages at a rate that
Yeah, got you.
is faster than you are,
Yeah, and better practice is don't turn those debug nodes on unless you really need to be looking at something you're
Right.
working on.
right, your debug node should all be turned off.
Yeah,
Unless you're actually working on the flow.
Yeah, the K4 flow at the moment is not debug nodes, it's actual error messages for a number of the
Ah.
functions.
Ah,
Yeah. But that's fine. I've got the idea now.
well, so one thing you could do if it's really causing grief when you're debugging another flow, you can disable that
Disable,
flow.
yeah.
So here, if I want to disable this flow here, I double click on the tab and I can click disable down at it's enabled right now. I can click disable and that will pause, if you will, that flow.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, this was really great, guys. Except it's going to cost me some money because now I have to go buy a Stream Deck.
I've got a question, if I may.
Go ahead.
So I fall in the category of essentially interested in Stream Deck. I've heard of it. By what I've seen, I think I could probably manage to get a couple of these things going, although I do not have the hardware. With FR Stack and the apps on Stream Deck, am I able to get started just with that to see if I can get the functions to actually work and then add the hardware later, or is that a prerequisite to making it started?
You go ahead and load
Hold on.
Node-RED and then load, there's a wiki for frstack.net and FRStack. I just updated it. If you follow that and install FRStack on the Pi, in the Node-RED, in the dashboard, in the upper left, you'll see 3 horizontal lines. If you click that, you'll have other pages with FRStack pages that you can open up and it'll show you. Ron, do you mind if I share my screen?
You can, you're a co-host, but give me just a second. So here is an example of Stream Deck buttons that talk to the Flex via FRStack. So these are FRStack REST commands in the URL. And this is how you can integrate a Stream Deck with a Flex via FRStack.
Without anything to do with Node-RED, right?
Correct. Node-RED.
That's correct. Without Node-RED, if you ran FRStack Windows version,
yes,
you can talk from the Stream Deck to FRStack and have controls.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is totally independent of Node-RED.
Okay, so FRStack is independent of Node-RED. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
It's independent, but FRStack can either run on the Windows, it can run on a Mac, or it can run on the Pi itself. So the difference is the socket, the TCP socket, where it says localhost 13.522. It'll be 5035 if you're talking to.
Actually, you can run them on
FRStack on the Pi.
You can run them on. You could actually run multiple instances.
Yeah.
You could actually be running the Windows version and the Pi version at the same time.
Yeah, I'm actually doing that right now for debugging.
Yeah. If you do get into FRStack, the one subtlety that isn't always obvious is you can run FRStack on a Windows machine, on a Unix machine. The port number is different between the two, and the path is different. With Windows, you have to include /API in the path. You do not do that with the Unix instance of FRStack.
And Mark W3 MKM, I guess is his call. He has done very good with his documentation in the help files. So the Windows version of FRStack has very, very good documentation on. You can actually run those commands from a web browser.
Yeah.
Right from a web browser. You don't even have to do it from the Stream Deck.
But everything that we've seen today, as far as the integration for Node-RED, that's literally going just from the Stream Deck to the Stream Deck program to Node-RED without going through FRStack, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I demonstrated earlier is totally independent of FRStack.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm doing a combination of both here. And what I'm going to do is let's see.
Yeah. Dave, it's all yours.
All right. So that's my Node-RED dashboard, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up my Stream Deck. here's my Stream Deck, and this is just
You're not
something
sharing.
that I've been.
You're not,
You're
not sharing
You're
at the
not
moment.
shared, Dave.
It's not sharing? Oh,
There, now you are.
there you go. So I'll go back and show you, here's my dashboard. And then I'll go back to the Stream Deck. And again, this is just something that I have. These buttons on the right are controlling a DLI Web Switch Pro. So remember when I said if you push a button, it could change stuff? Like if I go to outlet 6 and I push the button on the Stream Deck, it changes it and it comes back and it shows green instead of red. So that's one thing. The rotor control, I'm at 49 degrees. If I hit 120 towards Africa, the rotor will start turning. And it's actually going to go all the way the other way. So anyway, so that's a button that I have. This is SVG graphics we were talking about. This is a little bit more advanced. The amplifier operates standby. Again, this is just two image files, PNG files that is being converted and sent back as SVG graphics back to the amplifier. I mean, back to the Stream Deck. So I can get positive feedback as the amp and operator standby.
Dave, what we're looking at is the Stream Deck software on Windows.
Yeah, this is the software.
And so
easiest way
it's
to
got a
show it,
live, it's got a
but
live connection
with,
to the
it's
device.
live with my Stream Deck.
Right.
As mentioning the filter button, which is right here, and it just shows me my current filter. So if I reach over to my Maestro and change the filter, you'll see I can change it.
Hey, Dave, how do you handle big base 64 graphics? Because when I've been building out graphics, they're huge. They're like 30K.
It's 64-bit graphics. It's really, it's not too bad in size. There's I'll show you in the editor.
Okay, but is that all right? Because it's actually crashing my Node-RED, our main server. We have lots of flows and lots of things running on it. So I have to run everything on a separate machine.
I'm running probably about 20 flows on here. And again, this is my Stream Deck integration for the DLI Web Switch. And so what I'm doing here is, coming in with the information from the Web Switch. And it's coming in and it's taking a base 64 image. And I convert the image to base 64 and I paste it in here. So if I expand this and look at this, you'll see it's, it's pretty large. But I take a base 64 image. This node, it's called Image Tools. It actually takes that base 64 image and formats it correctly. And then what I'm doing here is there's a JSON here that it just basically sets the context and everything. And then the last thing is this sets the ID, so it goes out to the proper button on the Stream Deck.
Okay.
Message.image.
Do
Yeah.
I need to worry about the size of the base 64 files, though? Is there a
I
limit?
haven't had issues with any of the size that I've been sending.
Okay.
What is
I've got this flow up. I've got this flow up at the moment on a screen behind me, but mine must be a slightly an older version because it doesn't have the trigger nodes.
Yeah,
So it
I
doesn't
put the
have-
trigger. The reason I put the trigger is in there in parallel with the filter node, the filter and the trigger. What that combination does, and I'll show you the filter node. The filter just basically says block unless value changes. So unless something changes, it's not going to send it. And then the trigger says, don't send anything for 5 seconds and then send it. So it's saying send the existing message object and wait for 5 seconds. So what that does is it says, if nothing changes in 5 seconds, send it. Or if the value changes, send it immediately. We found if it's continually sending data, and that might be what's crashing the other gentleman's, if you don't have the trigger and the filter nodes in there, if it's continually slamming it with these images, it may be what's causing the problem. So if you put a filter and trigger in parallel, and the filter blocks unless the value changes, and the trigger basically waits for 5 seconds and then hands off the existing message, and just put those parallel in front of each one, And
Have
it
you
will-
got this? Have you got this latest version uploaded, or is this something recent?
I can package this up and put it up there. I'm still working on the Antenna Genius integration. I got to fix.
Yeah, I won't use that bit, so,
Yeah,
but I will be using the bit above.
Yeah, I was just working on that because I started building this when the Antenna Genius firmware was version 3. When they went to version 4, the API changed dramatically. So, but I got the two-
What software are you using to convert your files? I thought I saw a document on the Groups.io side about.
I found a site online to take an image, drop it in, and it converted it to a base 64.
What's it called?
I don't remember the site.
Uh-oh.
Hey, guys, I need to go attend to my wife for a couple of minutes. I will be right back. But I will leave the meeting open and be right back in a few minutes.
Guys,
Just one-
it was really
just
very
one-
useful, very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah,
Just
I
one
just did a
quick-
Google search on it.
Yeah, okay. And I thought I saw, was there a document online that you had some specifics on sizes of these pictures? Thought I remember.
I don't remember what I put in.
That
the
ring a
original
bell or
zip
no?
file.
Hmm.
It was 3 years ago. I uploaded it, so I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's particular. I found there was on GitHub. There was information on Stream Deck and Base 64 images, and this is where I plagiarized this from. So let's see if we can find it on GitHub.
So sending images back, I think I understand, but the one button you had on your filters, how is that working? Can you click on that Stream Deck button and explain how that works?
Yeah. I was just looking on. There's I don't know, there's a whole bunch of pages here that I have to find where it was, but they had if you do a search, you'll find it. Okay, going back to the editor, the button on the Stream Deck, the filter button here, and this is a little bit complicated in what I did, but I'll show you what I did here. That is the filter is right here. Oh, it's under Stream Deck proxy. Okay. That is this button right here. So I'm coming off of FR Stack, off of Flex Active Slice. If we go to debug, so Flex Active Slice sends is all this information here, including the filter low and high cut. So there's filter high and filter low down here in the bottom. So it takes in there, they come as a -100, -2800 since it's lower sideband. So I come into here and this various SDB buttons is something that I did up in the top. It sets the ID of the buttons. And I just basically remove, if it's, I just basically set the flex filter and then it filters low and high. Yeah, the if is remmed out. So what it is I did math.abs. So in other words, it removes the negative sign. It takes the absolute value, which is always positive for a number. So filter low equals math with a capital M dot abs, and then the parenthesis shift 9 message.payload.filter low, and then shift 10 or shift 0 rather, and then filter high is math absolute message payload filter high. So that's how I get my low and my high in the filter, and it converts them from a negative to a to positive numbers, and there'll be actually numbers then. And then in here under message ID equals flex filter. And the data, and this is the image. And if I were to expand this, at some point in time, I inject the low and the high, but you'll see it's a big image right here, filter high, filter low. So I'm injecting them into this whole big string. This is something that Tormod had did, and I took his work and then converted it over and into the Flex world. So it's taking this base image of that little bell curve with the word filter, which is his graphics that he did, and then it's it's overlaying the low and the high cut, and then it sends message.text equals filter.low. So it's going out as message.text. And then from there, it's going in and sending it to the button. Out here, and it's sending it out to Flex filter is the button context ID. So, and then it goes out to WebSocket out. So when I push it, it's going to send it out. So if I, it's just sending every time it gets a change in the filter, or every 5 seconds. Actually, there's no. Let me deploy that.
And Dave, is that fixed values to what the default filters are, or if you dragged an edge in or out, it would show that value?
Yeah, if I go into payload here, if I stop,
That's what's coming out of the API.
Okay.
If I look at the payload, you'll see the 100 down here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that to 650. Now I'm going to go ahead and erase this. I turned the knob on my Maestro.
Okay, gotcha.
And you'll see it change to 650 down here.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
So it's dynamic. It changes when the radio changes.
Okay, thanks.
And you could do the same thing with other radios. I did it with the K4. I did it with the K4. I took the filter high and low. There's a cat command. Cat command you can send to the radio to get the filter information out of the radio, and that's what I did.
So Dave, that you said that's coming out of the active slice flow on.
Yeah,
under
this
FR
is
Stack.
this is part of FR Stack. When you install FR Stack, you'll get
I've got
connection
it.
tab, radio, active slice, profiles, meters, memory, slice A, B, C, D.
So it
Also step IR one, which I don't use.
How are you coupling that? Because the end of that active slice flow is an HTTP request.
Yeah, out of the active, I'll show you active slice, and right here, out of here is that's my meter. I'm working on.
Oh, okay. You put a
meter, but right here is where it comes out, and this goes in for the filter, and this is saying, if I go message payload filter low, and I'm just sending it to message low, and then message filter high, I'm setting it to high, and it's just sending it out.
Okay.
Well, you don't even have to convert it here. You could just take what comes out. If I look at what comes out of here, you'll see the filter. It's just message.filter high and message.filter low.
Right.
So you could just take those two, and you don't even have to use that change node. But I have a link out that's sending it to the Stream Deck proxy, or just in my case, the proxy.
Right. So you added the links in the active flows.
Yeah.
Okay.
But again, I had two different ones because I was doing so much different work that I wanted to split them.
Mm-hmm.
But as I said, I come in with my Stream Deck with the WebSocket, Stream Deck in. I come into a switch node here, and the switch node is basically filtering anything on a key down, and it's only passing that out.
Right.
And then I'm taking the output and I was sending it. This went to the K4 flow, which is disabled. This goes to my the rotor, the DLI web switch, the TGXL, and the Power Genius. So it's just taking that, sending it out. For example, the Power Genius going out, that comes in right here from the Stream Deck. And it's basically saying here, PGXL state. That's the button. So if it sees that come in, if it sees PGXL state, then it's going to sit there and say, okay, and it's going to, I use variables that are stored in context.
Mm-hmm.
So it's saying here, get the state of the amplifier, flow get state. And if it's in standby and it sees a button push, then it puts it to operate. Operate equals 1. Else, if its state is idle, meaning that it's in operate, then when it sees the button push, it puts it to operate equals 0, which is standby. And then that just sends it right out to the rotor. I mean, to the amplifier.
What's that graphic on the bottom in red?
This is something we were doing stuff. Alan and I were playing around with different things with Power Genius and looking at the dBm level, and we actually worked on this Tuner Genius, a flow for the Tuner Genius that would automatically go through and tune it through each band. So you'll see on Tuner Genius, there's a lot of extra stuff that's in there for that. So it's stuff that we had been, Alan and I had been working on.
Those are just graphics pasted in there.
Yeah, you can take it, put it in a box, and put it in its little playpen, and
it's just documentation. It's like the flow. Got it. Okay. I have one question. So I've been on the fence as far as purchasing a Stream Deck.
Mm-hmm.
What's the general consensus? Get the biggest that they have, or which one has the most compatibility? I know there's
one I didn't show you is the Stream Deck Plus, which is pretty cool too.
I mean, in the end, it depends on your budget, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I've just got the 5x3, but the XL's got a lot more buttons on it, but just costs a lot more. It just depends how many buttons you think you'll want shown at
I didn't think
time.
I would. Yeah, I didn't think I'd need that many buttons, but then when I seen
and if you don't mind
everything else,
and if you don't mind having them on different pages, it's not a big issue. This is the Stream Deck Plus, which gives you 4 knobs. It gives you a little LCD bar that's actually a touch bar that you can touch and slide back and forth to different pages. And as you touch and slide that bar, it changes pages. And it gives you 8 buttons. So the tune button, if I hit the tune button, it initiates a tune on my antenna tuner. Master mute mutes my radios. I can start DACs. You can have them do different things. The knob here, it says slice A, it says volume, and of course it says error 0 right now.
So the knobs actually work though. If you turn okay, got it.
Yeah, I don't have this actually connected into FR Stack right now, but if I did, you'd see the volume for slice A, and it would be adjustable.
Okay.
The second one is the AGCT, and these you can program up whatever you want. And then I had slice B volume, slice B AGCT.
Like a super flex control.
Then on the second page, I had an RF power and a tune power knob.
Are those buttons pressable like they are on the Maestro?
Yes. You can press them, and then it would actually, a key down on a button, you could sit here and set the key down on what it does. So again, the action is audio gain, slice A, and URL is the loopback URL to the computer, 11.3, whatever that is, 11.3.5 or 13.522 API, slice A, audio gain. And then You can change the graphics on the button. You can create new graphics. You can create new background, which is the background up here that you see for where it says slice A volume. And again, what's coming back to the button is from FR Stack. FR Stack is what's sending back for that graphics.
Very
Just think,
interesting combination of using Node-RED and FR Stack and
Yeah, so as I said, it's Node-RED, FR Stack together and the Stream Deck. The Stream Deck can go talk to Node-RED or it can talk to FR Stack, so you can do a whole bunch of things.
so you can do that by page, I guess, right?
Yeah. And, not by page, individual buttons. So you don't have to have, one button could be talking to FR Stack and another button could be talking to Node-RED. And like here, if I drill down, 6600M is just a folder, and then I drill down, and now I have bands, and here's my bands. If I go up, I got frequency. It'll go and show the frequency and everything.
So if you're doing that by button, going back to the WebSocket proxy, how does that work? Because aren't the buttons all going to output to the WebSocket proxy?
only if the buttons are being configured as WebSocket proxy buttons.
Yeah,
You do that by
I
button.
just see the difference between WebSocket and WebSocket proxy is the name. Remember before they were talking about creating two different ones?
Right.
So instead of saying Stream Deck WebSocket, it's Stream Deck WS proxy. And the only reason I did that is because Tormod, in his work, he named it Stream Deck WS proxy. So I just used his naming conventions when I started playing with this, and I did not merge everything into one.
Could you go back to the Stream Deck software for a second?
Just one thing to note on that Stream Deck software, because while we've been on this call, I've downloaded it, and it all works fine. There's just one point of note though: the WebSocket proxy functionality for a button has to be installed separately. You have to go on the Elgato marketplace
Yeah, Ron mentioned that,
and look for it. Yeah. And
It
it's
should be
called
that
WebSocket.
plugin should be in the zip file that's on the Node-RED site, on the Node-RED for Ham Radio site. The group.
So you program each button as to where it's going to send the output?
Yeah.
Okay.
So in other words, this button here launches an app. It just launches Smart SDR. So
right.
And then if I go to this button here, that's when I was testing the RF2KS. Here's right now I'm not connected, but here's the frequency, and here's the this is what you would send to FR Stack to get the frequency of the radio. But if I go back up, go into buttons that are not talking to FR Stack, like my rotor buttons. Again, like Ron, I'm sending rotor 160 for the Caribbean.
I'm just missing how you tell it that this is an app button or a WebSocket button.
Okay, let's take a new button. Right? Double click it. And now what we want to do is on the right, you have all these choices.
Oh.
And here's where you would sit there and say, okay, if it's a Stream Deck, example, actions, multi-action, random actions, custom WebSocket right here, proxy. I drag that in, and now I can set it up as a WebSocket proxy.
Okay.
You can actually do REST commands. FR Stack uses REST commands.
Right.
So you drag in the FR Stack REST call button, and you can program that up for FR Stack.
It doesn't have to be limited to FR Stack, so to speak, though, does it, at the other end?
Anything that uses WebSocket proxy or REST.
So it's worth pulling FR Stack in, even if you're not using a Flex Radio.
Well, FR Stack will give you integration to an SPE amplifier, Power Genius amp, a Step IR antenna. I don't know what else it gives you integration besides those that are not flex.
Yeah, well, I've got an SPE amp and I've got a Step IR antenna, so
No, I'm
that would
using
be
Ron's
useful.
flow for my SPE. That's
Yeah, now what I've done is I've written in the Hawaii Pi, I've written a, let's see if I can pull it up real quick. Ron, you have anything to add right now?
Nope, I'm good. Although, if somebody wants an SPE flow, I've got one.
oh, you've got a great one. That was the basis for mine.
Is that loaded? That's loaded up on the IO groups files,
Yes.
is it?
Yes.
Great. Okay, I'll find it.
I'll show you this real quick. This is pretty cool.
On the Stream
I
Deck,
use Tailscale. This is a Hawaiian station, the remote station in Hawaii. And if I look at the editor, look at the Step IR flow. And I probably went a little crazy on this one. Come on. Alpha 9500. Why they put it in 3 pages, I don't know, but I didn't originally write it. Here's my, I like to spread things out. I don't keep them orderly. But this is the Step IR flow that's talking to an SDA 100 controller. And this is a Monster IR. And again, if
Yeah, I'm on the SDA 2000 controller, but
and
yeah.
again, this is what it looks like in Step IR there. You got your auto track on and off. You get the frequency coming in from the radio. Right now I'm set at 180 pointing towards the US. And so you get the radio frequency, last seen, last sent, that's the frequency sent to the stepper controller. Elements are ready, meaning they're not moving, and we're on 20 meters. And then you can do calibrate or home. And we just had this antenna fixed a couple of weeks ago. And that's a huge, that's a Monster IR. That thing's 72-foot long elements, 3 full-size elements on 40.
Where's the FR Stack software for the Windows end of things?
All right, so here I don't have FR Stack loaded. I'll show you it on mine.
You can just Google FR Stack.
So on Windows, you just do Google for FR Stack, and it'll say WCMKM, whatever software. Let's see if I could do that.
Yeah, I think it's MKM software.
Yeah, I've
FR
tried.
Stack.
Yeah, it's right at the top of the list. Accept it, record
And
malware.
then scroll down, and here's the download.
Yeah. According to
That's the Windows version. Now he does have the web API. If you go to, I hit home here, and right, yeah, that's the Windows one. And then the web API is pretty much what's in the wiki on Node-RED site that tells you how to install it. So if we go to wiki on the Node-RED site, this will tell you how to install .NET and FR Stack. And it
So
gives
that-
you all the commands and everything available.
So that's mkcmsoftware.com. mkcmsoftware.com?
Yes.
Okay. My Malwarebytes has blocked it, but apart from that.
Yeah, some will think it's a virus, but I've never had a problem. And then you'll see there's a Stream Deck plugin for FR Stack information, and then the Stream Deck GitHub site, which has a lot of information also. So he has a link to the plugin.
Another rabbit hole. Guys, thank you very much. I'm going to drop off. It was great. if you guys ever do this again, please let us all know.
Yeah. As I said,
Very
I just figured I'd show you my stuff, which is, obviously, I've been doing this a number of years and everything, and I plagiarized a lot of work from other people. So feel free to use whatever's up on the site and modify it to your use.
Thanks again.
Question on the Stream Deck again. So, I started to Mike's point. He's got a, what is it, a 5x3, I think, Stream Deck.
Right.
And but you can have multiple overlays. So,
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
That might be a way to go. That way, if you're, you wanted to focus on your digital like Ron had, you could go to that overlay and so on with a smaller deck. I guess
Right. As long as you have a forward and as long as you have buttons where you can get between the pages.
Okay.
An up level button and then the next level, or
You kind of have to reserve some buttons for that.
Yeah, so that's okay.
On anything but the main page, you would need two buttons, one to go back and one to go to the next level.
And is there a limitation on how many levels the Stream Deck has that you know of?
I don't think so.
Okay.
And what you can do is you can make folders. There's one of the buttons you can make is a folder, like I have for my 6600M, which is now an 8600. You hit that button and it brings you to another page that has more folders along with some buttons that do functions.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you. I got to drop my daughters here. So you guys take care, but this has been great. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I'm going to get going also. Any other closing words, Ron?
Nope, I'm good. I got to figure out how to deal with the video or the recording on this. Blast out an email and I'll blast out an updated PDF with the reference to the Elgato download for the WebSocket stuff. And maybe at a future point in time, if there's interest, we can do what I'll call the active buttons, pushing stuff back to the button.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. So thanks for this. Actually, I kept turning to my computer here, and some of the things that I picked up from this session today, I actually have buttons now that trigger in Node-RED, which I wasn't able to get before. So thanks for that.
Okay.
I'm starting really baby steps. I don't have a Flex. I don't have all of those accessories. So I'm trying really more primitive stuff, but I actually got it to work so that WebSockets actually sends to Node-RED.
I'll close with this.
To updating, the graphics on the buttons. That's the next thing I want to pick up on.
I'll close with this. For people who don't have a Flex transceiver and you only have a single CAT port out of your radio, I've taken, on the K4, you have a network port, which is easier, but I've taken a Kenwood CAT port USB to serial cable into Node-RED. So got the CAT into Node-RED. And then from there, I bridged it into USB to serial cables going to the Power Genius amp and the Tuner Genius for CAT. And then I converted it into the API for the Antenna Genius and used the Antenna Genius API to control the antenna switch. So it selected the proper antenna per band. So for people who are limited with a single CAT port, you can come into Node-RED with your CAT. And then from Node-RED, it can be a TCP to your computer. You can use on the computer, there's software called VSPE, Virtual Serial Port Emulator, that can take that TCP connection from the Node-RED, and that's your CAT input for all your software. So you would have a TCP to serial connection in VSPE. And then from that serial end, which is a virtual serial port, you then create a bridge. It connects to a bridge, which is another virtual serial port. And that bridge, that COM port, is used by all of your programs on the PC. So and I have a document that's kind of written up on VSPE and some sharing and creating bridges and serial ports. If anybody ever wants it, just give me an email.
Yeah, VSPE is pretty cool. I'm using that on 2 machines for just doing all kinds of wacky stuff. So yeah, if you have a radio that's to connect to your LAN or just a cat port, you're good. I have a TS2000, Kenwood TS2000, and I'm just doing stuff with that right now. So if you can connect to it through some kind of a port, then you're golden.
Yep. So so there's many things that can be done, and we've actually used Brett WX7Y was using 2 Raspberry Pis with Node-RED on each, and using what they call MQTT to talk between the Pis. And he had one connected to a non-flex radio through a cat port. And then it went out to the other Pi out at the tower where you had the amplifier, the tuner, and the antenna switch, and it controlled everything out there through the one cat port. All right, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks ever so much. It's been really helpful. Thanks ever so much for arranging it. It's appreciated.
Yeah, thank you, Ron.
Very
Thanks
good.
much.
Thank you, Dave.
All right, take care, guys.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks a lot, Ron, especially Dave, you too.